Eyes in the desert. The cold bit at Dr. Li Wei's fingers as he stepped out of the main control cabin onto the gravel-strewn plateau. A biting wind swept over the barren landscape of Lenghu, lifting fine dust and curling it around the legs of the telescope towers. In every direction, the gobi stretched out in solemn silence, its endless emptiness broken only by the two gleaming giants behind him, the 4.2-meter precision telescope and its smaller but no less vital companion, the 2.5-meter multi-terminal scope. Li Wei zipped up his jacket and looked up. The sky above was impossibly clear, sapphire blue during the day, ink black at night. This was why they had chosen Lenghu. No cities, no air traffic, no pollution. Just silence. For astronomy, it was the perfect ear to the cosmos. Inside, technicians were prepping the final sync test. Everything was ready. Years of design, bureaucracy, and budget battles had led to this moment. He heard footsteps crunching behind him. "Dr. Li," called a voice. It was Anika Sharma, her cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes bright with energy. "We're aligned. The instruments are locking onto the target sector now." He nodded and followed her back inside. The warmth of the control center was a small mercy. The team had decided to start with deep space observations, a sector just beyond the Triangulum galaxy. No specific reason. Just open sky. Li had insisted, no bias, no agenda. Let the data surprise them. Inside, several monitors lit up with scrolling data and spectral images. The telescopes, now synchronized through a custom AI-assisted alignment system, began their long scan. Tobias "Toby" Mendez, the American AI specialist, sat cross-legged beside the signal station, sipping instant coffee. His workstation beeped. Anika leaned in. "That's odd." "What is?" Li asked. She pointed to the spectral readout. "There's a spike in band 3C, tight, sharp, not natural background noise." Toby squinted. "Could be a satellite pingback." "No," Anika said. "It's repeating. Every 17.6 seconds. And look." She tapped the waveform overlay. "It's pulsing in primes. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Then again. It resets." Li frowned. "Try filtering out terrestrial echo and satellite bands." Already doing it, Toby thought, as he adjusted the filters. The pulse remained. "That's clean," he said finally. "It's not noise." Li leaned forward. Could it be a glitch in the software? Anika was already shaking her head. "It's coming from the direction we're scanning. And it's persistent. Faint, but stable." "Source?" Li asked. Toby checked. "About 2 million light-years out. Triangulum region." For a moment, no one spoke. Li looked at the signal again. Prime number pulses weren't something nature produced casually. They meant something, if only because they were inherently structured. "Dr. Li," Anika said carefully. "This might be artificial." The door hissed open, and Colonel Zhang Jun entered, his uniform crisp despite the chill. He scanned the room, eyes landing on the waveform. "What's going on?" Li briefed him quickly, skipping speculation. Zhang stared at the signal graph, then at the team. "Have you verified it independently?" "We're running that now," Anika said. "Cross-checking with older data and background records." Zhang folded his arms. "If this is authentic, the Ministry will want immediate classification." Toby raised an eyebrow. "With respect, Colonel, if this is what we think it is, it belongs to the whole planet." Zhang didn't respond. Instead, he turned to Li. "Keep this quiet. Run your verifications. I'll inform Beijing." After he left, the room was quiet again, save for the hum of the servers and the soft ticking of the telescope's calibration systems. Anika stared at the display. "It hasn't stopped. It's like it wants us to notice." Li didn't answer. He was deep in thought, staring at the pattern. Prime numbers. Structured timing. A location too distant for coincidence. "We may be looking," he murmured, "at a handshake." Toby blinked. "A what?" "A signal designed to say, 'We are here.'" "Are you?" Outside, the night was falling fast, painting the desert black. Above, the stars blinked into life. But it wasn't the stars that had everyone's attention now. It was the voice from the dark, whispering across the void. And Lenghu, silent, frozen, forgotten, had become the place where humanity first heard it. Signal protocol. The next morning, Lenghu Station was quiet, but not with peace. It was the kind of silence that settled when everyone was too focused, too cautious, to break it with idle conversation. Dr. Li Wei sipped hot green tea from a thermos as his eyes scanned the stream of data on the central monitor. The signal was still coming. Still precise. Still impossible. Every 17.6 seconds, a structured pulse. A faint radio burst, just above the cosmic background, pinged across space with unwavering discipline. A message, or at least the ghost of one. Li's mind churned. He had spent a lifetime studying the skies, but this was different. It wasn't just rare. It was deliberate. Anika walked in, her laptop tucked under her arm. She dropped into the seat beside him, sliding over her findings without a word. Li scanned the data. You ran it through a Fourier deconstruction? She nodded. And a symbolic compression model. I had the AI strip the noise, then analyze it for potential pattern structures. It's not random. The signal contains repeating sequences layered on fractal symmetry. Li raised an eyebrow. Fractals. Mathematical ones. Specifically, Koch curves and Sierpinski patterns. They're buried in the modulation. Like someone wanted to say, look, we understand geometry. Toby entered right on cue, carrying his tablet like a tray of delicate eggs. I ran the same signal through a variant of SETI's older decryption models. Guess what it spits out? What? Anika asked, already half-knowing. A timestamp. Li frowned. You're saying the signal contains today's date? Not in any human calendar. But the pattern marks solar cycles from a reference star in Triangulum, correlating precisely to this moment in time and now. That's not possible, Li said. A signal traveling from 2 million light-years away should be millions of years old by the time it reaches us. Unless, Toby said, sitting down, we're not hearing a transmission. We're hearing something else. Something faster. Li stared at the screen again. Was it even possible? Before he could speak, Colonel Zhang entered, his tone brisk and unreadable as always. Status, he asked. The signal continues, Li said. Its content is mathematically layered. Possibly intelligent. Zhang didn't react. I've sent encrypted updates to the ministry, he said. There will be a conference call tonight with Beijing. Until then, this does not leave the facility. Toby opened his mouth, then closed it again. Anika didn't hide her frustration. Sir, she said, this could be one of the greatest scientific discoveries in human history. We should be collaborating with the world, not locking it in a bunker. Zhang's eyes were cold. And if it's a trap? Or a probe meant to locate vulnerabilities? A message isn't always a greeting. Sometimes it's a warning. Li glanced between them. There is a middle ground. Zhang turned to him. We decode it. Quietly. Thoroughly. Then we decide what to share. Zhang gave a curt nod and left. Anika sighed. He sees aliens and immediately thinks, war. Toby leaned forward. Let's assume the signal is more than noise. Then we have to ask, why Lenghu? Li's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Why here? Why now? This isn't the biggest array in the world. Not the most powerful. But it is the quietest. No electromagnetic pollution, minimal atmospheric interference. Anika caught on. You think the signal was meant to be picked up here? Or maybe, Toby said slowly, it can only be picked up here. That possibility hung in the air. Li stood and walked over to the main server panel. He keyed in a new instruction, a blind sweep of sky sectors adjacent to the original signal source. If it's broadcasting wide, he said, we might find an echo somewhere else. The system began humming again, shifting the lenses ever so slightly. Outside, the giant telescopes turned like eyes, peering deeper into the abyss. Anika tapped her fingers on her knee. What if it's not just a signal? Li glanced at her. What if it's a key? That evening, the sweep came back. Empty in most sectors. But one new signal lit up, faint, buried under noise. Another pattern. Different, but with the same mathematical structure. A second voice. Toby stared, whispering the thought no one dared say aloud. They're talking to each other. Li Wei's throat tightened. No longer just a whisper in the dark. Now, there were whispers. And Lenghu had become a wiretap to the stars. The Lenghu Nexus. Snow dusted the edges of the rocky plateau by the time Li Wei stepped outside again. It was just after midnight. The air was still, and the sky looked painted, stars sharp and unmoving above the black desert. Lenghu's isolation, once seen as a logistical nightmare, now felt like divine selection. Inside, the base thrummed with quiet energy. Since detecting the second signal, the team had worked in rotating shifts, sleeping in snatches and eating from pre-packaged ration trays. The atmosphere had shifted, less academic, more like a mission. Something was unfolding, and they were in the middle of it. Toby was hunched over a digital whiteboard, modeling the interaction between the two signals. Red and blue traces danced across the screen in shifting loops. "They're not just talking," he muttered as Li entered. "They're synced." Anika looked up from her terminal. "How?" Toby pointed. "Each signal changes a fraction of a second after the other. Like a delay loop. One responds, the other adapts. It's communication, yeah, but more like a networked handshake." Li leaned over. "A distributed protocol?" "Exactly. Like a decentralized system syncing across long distances. The intervals are too exact to be random. It's coordinated." Anika hesitated. "But that would imply instant response. Across light years." Toby gave a grim smile. "Faster than light. Or something we haven't even defined yet." A long silence followed. Li exhaled. "You think it's not just 2 points. You think there are more." "Possibly hundreds," Toby said. "Thousands. But our array is the only one catching them clearly." Anika turned to the main projection screen. There, a composite map was being generated, a web of thin lines connecting faint signal origins based on their triangulated echo strengths. More than 20 points had been roughly marked in a radial spread around the Triangulum galaxy. At the center of the web glowed one node in gold. Lenghu. Li felt his chest tighten. The realization was settling in like cold water seeping into his bones. "These telescopes," he said quietly, "aren't just receivers. They're part of the system." Anika turned sharply. "You think the telescopes themselves are being used?" "They complete the pattern," Li said. "Our setup here, perfect clarity, synchronized optics, quantum-linked data storage, it's the final piece. Like the system was waiting for someone to build the last node." "You mean," Toby said slowly, "we just completed something?" Li nodded. "The Lenghu Nexus." An alert chimed. A red light blinked on the corner of the console. Zhang Jun entered moments later, already fully dressed, eyes sharp. "What's the alert?" Anika scanned the logs. "It's atmospheric. EM flux just spiked. Something small entered our airspace." Zhang moved to the window, then froze. "There." A faint orange glow flickered near the far edge of the plateau. Something had landed, or crashed. He turned to the team. "Stay inside. I'll take a recon drone." 10 minutes later, the feed from the drone's camera blinked onto their screen. The object was small, barely the size of a suitcase. Smooth, metallic, and unlike any terrestrial design. It shimmered subtly, surface-shifting color like liquid metal. "Non-magnetic," Zhang reported over comms. "No heat signature. No markings." "What is it?" Anika whispered. No one answered. Zhang brought the object into the lab within the hour. Wrapped in static mesh and stored in a sealed isolation chamber, it didn't respond to scans, pressure, or touch. But then, it spoke. Not in words, but in pulses, faint radio chirps mimicking the original signal's math. And then came a new modulation. A tight beam message beamed straight into the telescope system. Anika gasped as the data burst decoded. It's coordinates, star charts, planet markers, timelines. Toby whispered. They knew we'd answer. This was waiting for us. A final line of data flashed, then stilled. Do you seek? No one spoke. Lee stared at the message for a long time. He turned to the others. We've always looked to the stars for answers. Now, they're asking us the question. Outside, the wind picked up again, curling over the desert. But this time, Lenghu didn't feel silent. It felt awake. The answer from Earth. The question lingered on the screen for hours. Do you seek? The control room at Lenghu was silent, the glow from the monitors casting tired faces in cold light. No one dared move. Outside, the wind howled gently, sweeping the high desert like a guardian of ancient secrets. Dr. Li Wei sat motionless, eyes locked on the final transmission. The data stream had stopped. No more pulses, no more coordinates, no new anomalies. Just that question. It felt less like a prompt and more like a door waiting to be opened. Anika finally broke the silence. We can't ignore it. Zhang Jun stood in the back, arms folded. We don't even know what answering means. That, said Toby from the side, has never stopped explorers before. Zhang said nothing. Anika looked to Li. You're the lead. You decide. Li stared at the screen. He had once believed science was about observation, cataloging the world, understanding without interfering. But now, the universe was staring back. This was no longer observation. It was contact. Prepare the reply channel, he said quietly. Toby's fingers flew across the keyboard. Encoded message or symbolic return? Both, Li said. Keep it mathematical. Include basic chemical structures, DNA sequences, Earth's orbital coordinates, and our own question. Toby nodded. What do we ask? Li didn't hesitate. Who are you? Minutes later, the data packet was compiled and launched. The uplink beam from the 2.5-meter telescope was converted into a tight-band transmission, pointed precisely toward the coordinates embedded in the alien chart. The message was away. Then began the waiting. 3 hours passed. A second. Then a third. No reply. The tension in the room thickened. Zhang returned to his station in silence. Anika paced near the observation window. Toby, surprisingly still, just watched the screen with tired eyes. Then, just after dawn, the screen blinked. We are the architects. Everyone leaned in. A stream of new data followed, denser, more complex. Visual patterns, structures beyond human geometry, seemingly impossible symbols that spiraled like living equations. Anika's breath caught. It's a primer. A knowledge core. Toby muttered, they're giving us the manual to the universe. Zhang's voice cut in. Or bait. But the data kept coming. A history. Not in words or images, but in logic, evolution of stars, collapse of galaxies, emergence of civilizations in clustered pockets of the universe. Not names, not dates, but patterns. Eventually, Li recognized the sequence. They're describing themselves. The architects. A civilization that did not colonize or conquer, but seeded. Not planets, but knowledge. They had built the network, scattered across space, waiting silently for intelligence to reach out, not with rockets, but with questions. Zhang stood slowly. Then what is this? He gestured to the small pod in the isolation chamber. Anika turned. A test. Or a gift? No, Li said softly. An invitation. On the screen, a final burst of data translated into a set of visual coordinates, deep space markers, but something else too, a new frequency. Toby's face lit up. It's local. Not cosmic. It's underground. Li frowned. What? Toby confirmed. It's coming from below us. A harmonic resonance matching the architect's pulse signature. It's been dormant, waiting for the Lenghu array to activate it. Suddenly, everything clicked. The silence of Lenghu. The perfect clarity. The design of the telescopes. They hadn't just found the message. They had completed the receiver. Anika whispered, we weren't just listening. We were unlocking. Zhang's face darkened. And what did we unlock? At that moment, the floor rumbled, just slightly. The lights dimmed. On the monitors, a signal burst flared from beneath the desert. Ancient. Powerful. A panel on the far wall slid open with a quiet click, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. No one spoke. Toby finally said, "I think we're being invited in." Lee looked to each of them. "We stand on a threshold," he said quietly. "Maybe the greatest in human history. We didn't just look to the stars. We touched them. And they touched back." He stepped toward the stairs. Zhang hesitated, then followed. One by one, the team descended into the earth, where no map existed, guided only by the trust that knowledge, true knowledge, was never a weapon, but a question answered. And Lenghu, long silent and forgotten, had become not just a listening post, but Earth's first doorway to the stars.